Hey guys, good evening and welcome to the psychological test classes. Now I am Ashok Kumar Tamburaj, your psychologist from Armed Forces Preparatory Academy, Nagpur. So we'll be starting this video series in which we will be discussing about the psychological tests which are being conducted in the Services Selection Board. Now in today's video we will be covering about why the psychological tests are conducted, and then we move on to the thematic apperception test. Now we all know that the purpose of the selection center is to select the deserving candidates who can be trained into officers. Now to select an officer, it is important to find out the personality qualities of the candidates who are appearing in front of the Services Selection Board. And as we all know that there are three different assessors who are involved in the assessment of personality. One among the tests, I would say the important one, is the psychological test. Now in the psychological test, what does the psychologist want from a candidate? It is nothing but the same 15 qualities which you all must be aware of, but not only the 15 officer-like qualities, it is also what has made you to learn these 15 officer-like qualities in your life, bringing out various psychological aspects of it. What is the underlying emotions that is driving your behavior to behave in a particular way in a given situation? I hope you will learn better things about the psychological test in this video series. Not just that, there is something unique is there in this video. That is, you will get a big time opportunity to interact with me one-to-one. Now how it is going to happen? So for that you have to wait till the end of the video. Now we start with the basics of psychological test. We all know that the psychological test where the psychologist deals with your mind aspect, and the mind aspect is considered to be something which is very difficult to study, but still the psychologist goes through various responses what you have written in terms of your TAT stories or your WAT responses or your SRT situations, self-description, and of course with the help of a PIQ, he will try to match all these things together. I would like to say one thing here, that the failure in the psychological test happens not due to the problem in your personality, but it is mainly due to your wrong approach towards the test. So we are going to break all the myths what you have or what I have seen from the candidates during my time in the SSB, as well as now almost over 8 years into the training field, my interaction with thousands of candidates. So I have come to the conclusion that if the candidates are given the right direction, many of you can become officers in the future. So with this, I would like to start with the first test, what we talk about the basic test in the psychological test. It is nothing but the thematic apperception test. Now here in this video, I'll be showing you some clips. I'll be showing you some slides, so which you can take help for simultaneous learning. Not only I'm going to tell you what the psychological tests are about, how they are conducted. So what does the psychologist actually see through the responses, and how you have to prepare yourself to better in the psychological test. And of course I am going to give you examples to explain each and every concept. So please be very careful, please be very keen and observe as much as you can from this video so that you can have a better learning. Now to start with the first, like the thematic apperception test. So what does the thematic appraisal test is all about? It is nothing but, I'll be covering the topic. The first we'll be introducing to the TAT, and I'll be telling about how TAT is being assessed by the psychologist, and of course I'll give you some example as to how to write stories. So let us see the first thing. Though psychological tests are created in the 1930s by a psychologist from the Harvard University who is known as the Henry Murray. Now Henry Murray is known as the father of projective tests. Now why they are called as projective tests? Because there is a picture is shown and you are asked to project your experiences, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, various things, so that your actual personality comes out when you are writing such kind of a test. And let me tell you one thing. If you go through any other place regarding the thematic apperception test, one thing you will understand clearly that these tests are meant for the clinical purpose. That means the clinical psychologist who is dealing with mentally ill people to find out their various problems, whether they are mentally stable or unstable. If they are unstable, what could have been the cause for their unstable behavior? So what was initially found to find out the problems of people? The army, or I would say the defense forces of our country has adopted. But then here the basic difference between a clinical setup and a SSB setup is that in the clinical setup, the psychologist gives a lot of time to a patient or a lot of time to a client to come up with more ideas. The main catch here in the psychological test in the SSB is that it is the time pressure which makes this test more reliable for the selection process. And of course the pictures are shown, you know that they are ambiguous pictures. Most of the time they give out some unclear input. That means anything could be imagined positively, or any possible imagination is accepted from those kind of pictures. Now in the next line, so we all know that when you are writing a story, what was the instruction given? No, you have to write what has led to the event, what is happening at the moment, what is the outcome of the story, and of course you have to explain what the characters are feeling and thinking. Now the feelings, thinkings, all these things of the characters will bring out your personality. That is the reason these tests are known as the projective test. Now what does the psychologist actually see in the thematic apperception test? Now you must have gone through various videos about the 15 officer-like qualities, in which you might have got some knowledge about what these 15 qualities are and how they are expressed in terms of your behavior. Now if you keep remembering those 15 officer-like qualities in your mind and keep comparing yourself or comparing those qualities with the discussion what we are having today, so you will have a better understanding as to how one can project his qualities in a better manner. Now remember the parameters which are used by the psychologist in assessing the TAT. The first parameter I would like to say is the character identification, and the second one is the theme of the story. A third one, what is the purpose of the main character who is shown in the picture, and fourth one, what is his approach towards the goal or the problem which are either present or not present directly in the image, and finally how you conclude the story. So this is what normally a structure of a story. Some people find it difficult to bring out this particular structure in the story. Either you will be talking more about the past, or you will be talking too much into the future, not focusing on the present. When someone is not focusing on the present and writing a story too much into the past or the future, the psychologist will consider it to be a wishful idea. A visual idea is something which happens beyond a time limit. A visual idea is something which happens without any specific actions. So such kind of ideas makes you actually an immature person who's more into like a daydreamer kind of one. So to avoid that thing, you have to follow the particular structure when you are writing the story. Now let us start with something more interesting. Now from the introduction you must have understood that what is more important in the psychological test is writing the story. In the story, what ideas you bring out, the content brings out what type of a person you are. Now let's see if a picture is shown where one person is standing over a bridge, whereas another person is in the river, and we all can understand from the situation that the person most likely he is struggling in the water. Now when you are seeing this picture, the first thought comes to the mind of everyone is that someone is in trouble and the main character goes to save the person. Now what does it show? You observed something from the picture. Remember, the success depends on what you observe and how you observe the picture that is given to you. Now here why we say observation of the picture is so important, because it is the main quality that the psychologist expecting, that is your reasoning ability. Now if you remember, out of the 15 officer like qualities, one of the qualities connected with your brain is the reasoning ability. Now what happens in the reasoning ability? Now when we talk about reasoning ability as a OLQ, there are two aspects involved. One is your receptivity, so how much information you get from a situation, and second thing is logical thinking, how you connect the details shown in the picture logically in the story. Now if these two things are clear, that means you are considered to be a person who is having a good reasoning ability. And remember, if your reasoning ability is rated low by the psychologist, then all other qualities get affected. Even as an assessor, we all feel that the reasoning ability is considered to be the mother quality of all. So that means your reasoning has to come out more clearly. So how to bring the reasoning ability clearly to the psychologist? The first thing is observe the picture carefully. If you remember the task which you are doing on the screening day, that is your PPNTT, there the psychologist specifically asks you to write certain details, the number of characters, the gender, age, mood, what is the background shown in the picture, and what is the task they are all doing. So all these details you have to gather. Now remember, the 30 seconds time given to you is to get all these details. So the first mistake a person can commit is that rushing to write the story without seeing the essential data or essential details shown in the picture. Don't do that. If you have to clear the psychological test, you have to observe the TAT image in a more clear manner, understand the various aspects shown in the picture, and then you can try to connect them logically. So this is the first quality which is coming out in the assessment. Now when we talk about other qualities, how the other qualities comes. Like in your story, you are asked to create a characters. Now there are so many characters are shown in the picture sometime, and sometime you will get only one character, and there is one picture particularly in SSB where there are no characters are shown. Now when so many characters are shown, you have an option to choose the main character. But if there is only one character, so you have no option. Your main character has to be the one who is shown in the picture. In case of a picture where there are no characters shown, so obviously you can bring the main character from outside the picture. So here the problem comes when there are many characters shown in the picture, multiple characters. When the multiple characters are shown, some candidates gets confused which character should be taken as a main character. Should I take character A, character B, character C, character D? Sometimes it is a group of characters, sometimes it is a crowd. What should we do? Now when such kind of a thing comes, always understand one thing clearly. Who you should take as a main character is someone who can project your officer-like qualities in a better manner. Since these are the projective tests, especially the TAT, whatever your main character is doing, it is considered that is what you will do in your life. It may be positive or it may be negative. Now you can understand that why the psychologist emphasis more on assuming a better character in the story. Now here the character when we talk about, the first condition comes is what? The psychologist will automatically consider the first character whom you mention in the story as a main character. So that means what? The first name you start with, it could be any name, it could be any character, but the first character by whom you are starting the story with, he or she will be considered as a main character by the psychologist. For example, I told you an image where a guy who is standing on top of a bridge and someone looks like struggling in the water. 90% people, they assume the person who is standing on the bridge as a main character, and what they do, they let him go and help the person who is struggling. But here there are some people who doesn't understand the importance of main character and other things. So for them, the main character is the one who is struggling in the water. Now here what happens? You assume the main character to be struggling in the water, and then he expects someone to come and save him. Do you think such kind of people will show their confidence, their courage in an effective manner? I don't think so. Such kind of characters are considered to be sympathy seekers. Such kind of characters are considered to be helpless people. So why you have to take a person whose helpless nature or a sympathy seeker as a main character? So what you are going to project to the psychologist? You are the sympathy seeker. If you do that, no psychologist will pass the candidate. Remember that clearly. So that is the first aspect of the hero identification. And the second one, obviously you know whom you should make as a main character, the one who can solve a problem or achieve a goal. Like if everyone can solve a problem, so there is no hero required. A hero is required to solve a problem which is not normally solved by other people. Like a simple example, when we are doing a sum in the class, in the mathematics class, so your teacher asks someone to write the sum in the whiteboard or the blackboard. Everyone is afraid. Some of them, even after knowing the answer, they don't come out. But then there is a guy who comes up confidently and says, yes, I will do it. And when he goes and does the sum in front of the entire class, and the teacher says, good, very good. So now you have to see the kind of pride that guy is getting from that kind of a situation. Now in front of the entire class, he becomes a hero. Like this, from a small simple situation to a major difficulty situation, one can emerge as a leader. Remember, everyone can emerge as a leader if you wish to be. So please understand that your main character is the person who is always in the front line and should be able to solve the problem or achieve the goal. Now I am emphasizing on this problem solving or goal achieving, that I will clarify in the slide coming after some time. Now the third aspect of the hero identification you could see from the slide is that giving specific name to the hero. Now why you have to give a name to the hero? How does it matter? What does it matter? Now naming a person shows your involvement with the picture. Remember that. Your involvement in the problem solving skill. Suppose you are writing a story like this. There is one person standing on top of a bridge. The other person is struggling in the water. So the person who is watching on the bridge, watching from the bridge, he jumps and saves the person. Now here, you are just describing an event as a third person. The moment you describe the situation as a third person, it shows your lack of involvement in the situation. Remember that. If you want to make yourself involved directly in the problem or in the situation, you should start the story with the name of the character. For example, Ram, so standing on top of a bridge, he saw someone drowning in the river. Now Ram jumped into the river and saved the person. Now here, you have assumed yourself to be the main character, Ram. So you are very specific, you are clear. So be clear and be specific when you are giving the name to the main character. At the same time, you don't have to use different names for all the 12 stories. Remember, the marks are not awarded to the name of the character, rather it is to the actions what he or she has taken. Understood? Now the next aspect, now this is some tricky situation, a tricky question. Now, gender and age should be preferably of yours. One of the question which have been asked so many times by many people, many aspirants. Sir, should I take always my own gender as a main character? Can't I take the opposite gender? Now remember one thing clearly. Being a male, thinking like a female is something always difficult. In the same way, being a female, thinking exactly like a male is not an easy task. So for your own convenience, it is better to take your own gender as a main character. When you take opposite gender as a main character, what does it show? It shows that you are a person who lacks confidence. Someone who keeps identifying himself with the opposite gender. Or maybe that, you are a person who is too much involved with the opposite gender, like obsession, some kind of a obsession with the opposite gender, which makes you always think that opposite gender is much superior than your own gender. So don't do that. Though there are certain conditions in which you can take the opposite gender as a main character, the first condition is there is no character of your gender shown in the picture. And the second condition is your main character or whom you want to take as a main character who is of your gender is not in a good position. Say for example, the same picture, if we take the person standing on top of a bridge, the other one is drowning. So the person who is drowning in the water is not of it is of your gender. Whereas the person who is standing on top of a bridge may not be your gender, it is a opposite gender. So in such cases, the situation is quite clear that the one who is strong enough to be a leader has to be taken as a main character, irrespective of the gender. The same thing applies to the age of the main character as well. So age, like preferably of your age, like when you are a school student, you can try to think like a school student more. Or if you are a college student or you are a working professional, try to identify your main character, someone close to your age. When we say close to the age, you are 20 years, your main character is 22 years, it doesn't matter much. But whereas you are a 20-year-old chap and your main character is 40 years old, so there is a age gap. Now here the question comes clearly to the psychologist that why he is assuming a mature character as a main character. So you are trying to play safe that at your age you cannot solve the problem, so you are giving it to someone who is much mature. Again, it shows lack of confidence. But the same condition apply which I told you for the gender. If your own age bracket character is not in a good condition, then you can assume someone who is of a higher age. But don't always try to take your main character as someone who is younger than your age. The more you take the main character is younger than your age, It shows your lack of confidence. You are quite happy with your previous life. You are not a person who's dealing with the current situation. So keeping this in mind, next time when you are choosing the character, no, the gender and the age of the character, you should be taking your own gender the first priority and your own age as the first priority in most of the situations or most of the pictures wherever possible. If not, you can go with any character. Now the next aspect, another important aspect in the hero identification process comes is the mood of the characters. Sometimes people ask me, sir, there are 3 different moods: positive, negative, neutral. So can we take a main character shown in the negative mood? Again, the condition is same. What is the condition? If there are 2 characters shown in the picture, one character in a positive mood, the other character in a negative mood, still you can consider the positive character as a main character. Now why you have to assume yourself as someone who is in a negative mood? What does it show if you are prioritizing a negative character as a first character? That shows that somewhere in the underlying in your mind that you are a pessimistic kind of a person. Like, a pessimist always sees the glass half empty, whereas an optimist always sees the glass is half full. So when there is one positive character shown in the picture and a negative character is shown in the picture, why you have to assume a negative character as a main character? So there is no doubt that your main character should be in positive mood. But again, it can change based on the picture. Some pictures are made in such a way that it puts you in extreme pressure condition. Like you saw only one character and that one character is crying. So what could be possible? Now here I would like to ask you guys one question. Don't we cry? You think crying is specific to one particular age? Have you ever seen your father crying? Have you ever seen your mother crying? May not be in front of you, but then they do cry. That means even a grown-up person can cry. But then if you are writing a story where your main character is crying, he has to cry for certain reason. And that reason cannot be something like what a child does. Like parents are not giving chocolate, the child start crying. That could be what? 6 years, 10 years, even 10 years possible. But you are writing a 25-year-old child who has not got something what he wants. So he started crying. So that is where you are going in the wrong direction. So please understand clearly that your main character in a positive mood, even if he is in a negative mood, then there has to be some valid reason why he has to get into that negative mood. But then that is the present, what is shown in the picture. If you want, you can change that negative into positive by doing a lot of efforts. And those efforts matters here. It is not about what is shown in the picture. It is thereafter what happens. You lost in something which is important. Maybe your aim. So you initially felt very bad. We all does. We all have done it in our life. But then later on you realize that, okay, why should I cry? Now that I have cried, I should forget about that. Whatever has happened. Let the past be in the past. Let us go into the future. So that should be the attitude you should show when you are seeing such kind of pictures. So this is the one aspect of mood. Then of course the next, what are the other aspects a hero should have? When we talk about the main character, he should always be proactive in taking steps. What do you mean by proactive? Proactive is nothing but your main character should keep taking steps on his own. Like remember, there is a difference between a leader and a follower. A follower does a job which is told to him or her. Like a leader tells him, you do this, so he or she will do it. But a leader is a person who thinks ahead in the future. He says, okay, what can be done? I remember a proverb. You all must have heard this quote. I put it in very simple. A leader always thinks for the future. He thinks for tomorrow. A responsible person thinks for today. And a loser thinks for yesterday. So if you want to be a leader, you should think for tomorrow. What is going to happen? How should I prepare myself so that I'll be in a comfortable position? So that is what we're talking about, proactive in taking steps. So that shows your initiative. And initiative, if you remember the qualities, the definitions, what does initiative means? So taking first step in the right direction and sustaining it till you are achieving the task. So it is a three aspect, not just taking the first step. It should be in the right direction and you should sustain it till you are completing the task. So that is what proactive is all about. And the next aspect, we are bringing something more sensitive here. That is your factor 2. What is that? Social adaptability. So social adjustment, cooperation, sense of responsibility, your attitude towards people. Always remember, your main character shown in the picture should have a positive attitude towards others. Now, how do you show the positive attitude towards others? What can you do? Like there are two characters shown. One character is drowning in the river. The other character is going to save him. That is good attitude, isn't it? No, your main character want to save someone. But then the person who is drowning, what is necessary that he has to be your own brother or your friend, someone who is very close to you emotionally. Such kind of situation, a big doubt comes to the mind of the psychologist is why he is putting someone who is close to him into trouble. That means what? The person who is struggling in the picture in any sort of a problem should always be considered as an unknown person. If you put known people in trouble or keep putting each and every story, whenever you see a problem, you put someone who's emotionally connected to you into that trouble. That shows that you have a strong attitude problem. Somewhere in your unconscious mind, you are not happy in the relationship. And that is being reflected as putting those people in trouble. And the next aspect, making use of the resources available. Like if I have to talk about resources, there are basically two resources. A human resource and other resources like materials. Anything comes under material like your money, you have vehicles, you have other furnitures, various other things. Then of course human resource. A leader should be able to manage both the resources, human resource as well as materials in an effective manner so that the result has to be much better. So you have to prove the psychologist that in the stories your main character is using the resource. So if you want to save a person from drowning, you are next to you are in a picnic spot or you are in a riverside. We all know that there may be some boats are kept. Now the boats are tied with a rope. You can take a rope, or there may be spare ropes kept in the boat for the emergency purpose. You can take the rope and save the person. So that is, you are logically assuming the resource. So logical assumption of any resource is highly accepted. So that is your next aspect, resources part is concerned. Now we come to value. Always project the hero of a high value. What do we mean by value? When we talk about value, you mean to say that the value can be two things. One is the material value, like your main character is wearing a high-end dress, is carrying an iPhone, wearing an iWatch, isn't it? It's like that. So the value here we are talking about, there are two things. One is his position in the society. So that he's a respected person in the society. So when you are putting your main character, someone who's in a respectable position, that shows you are giving lot of value to your own self. Like the more the value your main character is in, you are considered to be a value-oriented person. Someone who's believe in self-esteem. Someone who believe in the prestige. The other value what we are talking about is the moral values of the character. The main character should not do any job using a illegal method. He should not do any job breaking the rules, going away from the rules and regulations. Remember, as a leader, you should be following the rules and regulations strictly. Then only the men who are following you will follow it. So you have to leave an example. You have to set an example to others by following the rules and regulations strictly. So show your main character, irrespective of the difficulty, he has not taken any kind of a shortcut. He goes with the right approach. He goes in the straight way. He goes in the right direction. He goes in the right direction to do something better for the people. It might take time. Going in the right direction, it might take time, but don't worry. So here it is not about doing the task in a time, it is doing a task in a sincere manner. So you have to show the sincerity, that value, moral values has to be, that ethical values, all those things should be brought in the story by the actions of the main character. Then coming to the last aspect of the hero, like you have seen so far so many things. What is the last one? Your main character should be able to handle stress and remain confident. Now, why we are emphasizing on stress here? You know that factor 4, dynamism, which includes determination, courage and stamina, 3 things. Stamina, we talk about physical stamina as well as mental stamina. Now when we are talking about stamina, how does your main character shows his stamina to the psychologist? Like, it is not, psychologist is not asking you to physically show anything. But remember, your physical stamina is still seen by the psychologist. How? You start the first story in the TAT, writing 10 lines, 12 lines. By the time you come to the 12th story, it was from 12 lines, it has gone to 6 lines. So each and every story, the number of lines are getting reduced. That shows that you started losing your energy physically as well as mentally. That is one thing. Second thing is, when you avoid some image, what do you mean by avoiding the image? You know that there is something is lying, entirely covered, and by the shape of it, it looks like a human body. So when such kind of a picture comes, if you take that main character or the person who's the dead person, rather considering him to be a dead person, if you take him as a person who's sleeping, he is covering his entire body and sleeping because he has got a high fever. In such kind of places, you are showing to the psychologist that you have a tendency to avoid the stress. And remember, the entire SSB is based on stress. How much importance we give to the stress aspect, stamina aspect. Everyone can perform well if there is no stress. But then there are only few people can perform well under pressure, under stress. And such kind of people, they obviously emerge as leaders. And we want you to be one of such kind of a person. So that means what? Don't worry about the stress. No fear, nothing. Just take the stress as it is and come out of the problem. You have to if you want to fight hard, fight it hard. But then, without avoiding the stress, you should come out of the problem. You should take it as it is and then think logically, okay, this is a stress which is happening. How can I handle the stress? And then, how can I handle the problem? And then what type of solution I can give. So this is the last aspect. And you have to show yourself confident. Any situation comes, don't run away from the problem. Don't try to bypass it to someone. If you want to be a leader, you have to do everything by yourself. Even in the defense, what happens as an officer, you have to lead from the front. You cannot send someone or you cannot send your men going to the front. You cannot send them like, you go and fight with the enemy. I will cover from behind. It is rather the other way where you go in the front, fight with the enemy when your team is covering for you. So I hope you understood some basic point regarding the hero identification in the psychological test, especially in the TAT. Now the second aspect which we are going to cover is the theme of the story. Now when we talk about the theme of the story, the moment you look at a picture, something comes to your mind. That is what we talk about, the theme. What could be the theme? It could be a positive theme or it could be a negative theme. Doesn't matter. When a story or when an idea will be considered as negative is nothing is shown in the picture. Again, I am connecting with the picture we discussed earlier. A man standing on top of a bridge, someone is struggling in the water. If it is clearly shown someone is struggling in the water, there you should assume that the person is drowning. That is absolutely positive. Whereas, nothing is shown, just a man standing near a bridge or a man standing near a river. There is nothing otherwise shown in the picture. There is no negative. But still you consider someone is drowning. That is where you are unnecessarily introducing the problem. That is where you are showing that your theme is going in a negative direction. Please always be positive. So to make it more simple, understand this clearly. What is that? What is a positive story and what is a negative story? A positive story, a positive idea is something which goes with the picture. The moment you go away from the picture, your story tends to be negative. It is both the way. Taking the negative as it is or taking the positive as it is or avoiding the negative as it is, as well as introducing the problem unnecessarily. So all these things you should be very clear with the theme of the story. Second thing, like your story, when you are imagining a theme, it should be practical and logical. Now when we talk about practical, what do you mean by practical? Something which can happen in real life. Many people ask a wrong question to themselves. What is the wrong question they will ask? What I am going to do in this situation if it happens in real life? That is a wrong question to ask. Especially in the TAT story, the right question you should ask to yourself is, what I am going to imagine? What I am going to write in the story? Can that happen in real life? If you ask this question, you will have no struggle in the story writing. So that is one aspect. Second aspect is being logical. What do you mean by logical? I have seen many times people writing a story. A person in a civil uniform. Oh, he is in a civil dress. Not wearing any uniform. And obviously there was a cannon shown in the picture. This picture most of you must have seen in your YouTube and other things. How can you connect the cannon and a person who is in a civil dress into something like a different story where your main character is an officer posted in artillery department or in the artillery regiment? You know, he is going to engage in a fighting with the enemy. Now he is not wearing any uniform, so he cannot be a defense officer, because in the field area most of the time the officers and jawans, they wear the uniform and go around the place. Second thing is the cannon which was used by Britishers, Mughals, Rajputs, Marathas 300 years ago, 200 years ago. That is what we are using in the present day artillery. So this story, when you write, it becomes the illogical idea. And second thing is, you are trying to unnecessarily bring in the defense connection to the story. Remember that. Don't imagine any story about defense if it has got no connection with the picture. So that is one thing. And second thing is achievable story. What do you mean by achievable story? When we are talking about the time frame, you should always try to take a short-term goal in the story. Don't take a long-term goal. When the goal is long-term, it tends to be more like a wishful idea. It tends to be more of a over-ambitious story. When something is over-ambitious, which part will you explain? Will you explain part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4? No parts can be explained if it is a long-term process. It has to be a short-term process where your main character worked particularly for that specific task. So for example, a small example is like your main character want to be a doctor. There you have to write a story from his preparation for NEET exam. If you want to focus only about that, now even preparing for NEET exam will take its own time. You have to work, you have to struggle a lot. You show only that struggle in the story. At the end of the story, you could say that he cleared the NEET exam and joined in a college. Maybe 1 year preparation is required. Absolutely fine in the story. But don't start from his 12th standard. He prepared for NEET exam. Thereafter, he became a doctor after 5 years of training or 5 years of studies. After house surgeon, he became a doctor. So almost like 5 years now, 6 years now. And then he went back to his village. He started his own hospital. And then he started doing free service. Now, this is what we talk about wishful idea. An idea based only on your wish. There is no reality into it. I'm not saying that these things cannot happen in real life, but then frankly speaking, the possibility of such things to happen in real life is in a 0.1 like that, the percentage. So exemptions cannot be made as a regular story. Your regular story should be something is happening regularly in day-to-day life. So that is the achievable part is concerned. And the next one is, of course, commensurate to the age and work of the hero. Now you have taken a main character, you have given him a job, you have given him an age. He is a 25-year-old man. At the age of 25, you should be doing something better for the country, isn't it? So 25 is not the age where you go and play with the children. That neither supports your age, it nor supports your profession. Your main character is a teacher of 30 years old. So he should behave like a teacher at the age of 30. He is going and teaching the children. So your main character, whatever the profession you are giving him, whatever the age you are assuming him, it has to be brought out clearly in the story. And all actions what he is taking, it has to commensurate with the age and work of the main character. And then the last point here, the most important point I would say, level of difficulty. What we talk about level of difficulty? A story which has to bring out your officer-like quality. Now when we say level, for your easy understanding, I would like to put three different types of levels. Low level, average level, high level. Now if you are a low level candidate, where do you stand? Your chances of clearing the psychological test is, I would say, 0. Average level student, 50 to 60% chances are there to clear. High level student, it is 100% chance. Now a candidate is a low level, average level or high level is decided based on the level of difficulty you face in the stories or your main character faces. So that's why we always say, imagine something different. Don't always go with a routine idea. For example, there is a notice board scene. Most of you must have seen in the YouTube and other places. So notice board is there. There are some people standing. So in front of the notice board. Now we all know that notice boards are seen in the schools, colleges. And they bring something like notification about the exams, results, various things. Now here I would like to say that your main character is doing something to study himself, improving himself for the studies. That is the basic purpose of the schools and colleges. Remember, none of these schools and colleges focus too much on extracurricular, but then all the schools focus on curricular activities. That is your academics. So when you are writing a story where your main character is preparing for an exam and he passed the exam, that would be considered as a routine level idea. So there is no difficulty there. If you want to bring a difficulty, then you have to assume that your main character is doing something better than the normal students. So such kind of difficulty. Maybe he is a captain of a college team, any games, any sports, any events for the matter. So he has to lead a team of people into something better for the college. So such kind of ideas are considered to be higher level ideas. So keep working on your imagination, keep working on your ideas. The more you generate your ideas, your psychological test will be better. So far we have seen three aspects. I would say starting from your observation of the picture, hero identification, and now the third aspect is the theme of the story. Now the next aspect in the story is the approach. We all know what do you know? There is a problem and we all know what is the solution. There is a task, how it has to be, or know what is the end result. We all know the problem, we all know the cause and effects. But what the psychologist is focusing more is on your approach towards the problem or goal. There is a problem shown, how your main character acts, what are the steps he takes so that he can do something better than the others. So this particular approach is what we talk about here. Will bring out more of your officer-like qualities. It brings out your intelligence, it brings out your effectiveness. It brings out how quickly you can think under different conditions, difficult conditions, stressful conditions. So here there are few things. The first is, it should always be positive. Your approach. When I say approach, like I told you, it is connected with the value of the main character. Your main character cannot take a, wrong approach. He should be positive. He should be an optimistic person. He cannot be a pessimistic person. Like an optimistic person, he will try to see an opportunity in each and every problem. But a pessimistic person, he will try to emphasize too much on the things which are not present there. And the second is, be practical and logical. That means your approach should be like going in a systematic manner. It has to be in a practical way, in a logical way, something which is accepted by everyone. And it should be achievable, more important. Like, being a leader, you cannot take your team, you cannot take your men in a way which is quite dangerous because you just want to show your effectiveness. No. It has to be as simple as possible. It should yield less effort, but it should put less effort but then get a better result. So that is what we are talking about leadership. The next aspect is explaining the methods. Like I told you, you need to bring out the systematic process here. What is a systematic process? From step A, B, C, D, E, F. So it has to go in a systematic manner. Your approach, the first step, second step, third step, fourth step. Sometimes what happens, we all know that if we change the steps in between, or if we, there is a mismanagement, we all know that the end result cannot be the same. So most of you must have faced this in your life, especially those science students who worked in the chemical laboratory or chemistry laboratory. Like everyone using the same procedure, but you at the end result you see all your friends, their solution turned pink, but yours was the only solution which turned orange. So what has happened? You did the same thing, but the end result was different. That means in between, either you may have forgotten some step or you may have mismanaged. So that is why I always say the steps has to be in a systematic manner to bring a better result. Then of course follow rules and regulations. Never break the rules and regulations for your own purpose, your own self. When a person who is a selfish nature, like he breaks everything, every rules for his own betterment, such kind of person can never become a military leader. We all know that a military leader sacrifices himself. The military leader leads from front. I won't say that they are the selfless people, but they are people who worry more about others. So this thing you should keep in mind. And the last one, something which is more important, different from others. In a common situation, there is sometimes people think that there is only one way of achieving the task. But a leader will always find a different way in each and every step. You be the person who finds a different approach towards the problem. Then you will see it is, you are the one who is emerging as a leader. You are showing a better way to the other people. So this is being different from others. So I think so far what we have seen are something about the TAT. Of course there are some more parts to cover. So I want to go in a slow manner, and I know that TAT cannot be explained in one small video. So we will be doing one more video about the thematic apperception test. So we will continue in the next video, and we talk more in detail about the various other aspects of the thematic apperception of test. So I hope you have learned something important about the TAT. So before winding up, I would like to tell something what I told you in the beginning, that you will get an opportunity to interact with me one-to-one, and for that what you should do is you have to go to the link given in the description box. I wish you guys all the best. So practice well what are the points we have discussed, and keep doing well in your practice. And at the end of the entire video series, I am sure you would have gained more knowledge about the psychological test. So thank you guys. Jai Hind.